Hello and welcome to Mythmakers. Mythmakers is the podcast for fantasy fans and fantasy creatives, brought to you by the Oxford Centre for Fantasy. My name is Julia Golding, and today I am delighted to be able to welcome back Andrew Head, who is a wonderful writer from Australia who I met through one of our courses. But Andrew is also blind, so he is my go-to person to find out about audiobooks, of which he is a massive consumer. Though, Andrew, I'm also a massive consumer, so I'm sort of nipping at your heels in my enthusiasm for that format.
Good.
So welcome. Andrew, we have been saving this up so you've listened to quite a few things, and we're going to start with your reaction to what you've listened to in the Philip Pullman Dark Materials trilogy. And the one that you have listened to is the BBC audio from 2005, which has Philip Pullman himself as a narrator with other actors taking parts in the story. Tell us about what this is like to listen to and what you got from it.
Well, it's quite different. It's sort of a halfway, you have with this particular format, it's a bit of a combination of most audiobooks are narrated by one person with doing voices, but then they've kind of with this one, because Philip Pullman's narrating it, and then every time it's a character's turn to speak, it's voiced by a different actor for each character. So it's sort of a cross between, a regular audiobook and a dramatization. And I thought it was unique because there doesn't seem to be too many of them around in my experience. And I quite liked it. I felt it brought the story to life a little bit in a different way because you had, each character had a distinctive voice that wasn't the narrator's.
And I guess it helps the fact that you've got the author reading the book, and we aren't actors, but we are probably decent narrators of our own work when it's a third person narrative. So how did you find hearing Philip Pullman's own version of his words? Did that bring something extra to it?
Oh, yeah. It's always exciting when an author reads their own work. And if there was anything and any names that being a fantasy, a bit different to regular names of people and places, you got how the author intended them to be pronounced, which is always nice. I mean, quite often, from what I've heard, and I imagine, the narrator would ask the author for pronunciations, and the author sends in written or audio of how they want things to be pronounced. But yeah, it was really nice that the author himself was reading it, and you could hear how everything should be pronounced properly.
Mind you, I've just had what happens is the publisher sends you a sort of list of, it's like a template document, and it says, are there any accents that we should, that the narrator needs to be aware of, or are there any special pronunciations, just like you said. And I've just been listening to the audiobook of one of my Regency crime stories called The Wordsworth Key. And it's set in the Lake District. And there's something which I didn't think to tell them, which I've just noticed. I think I may be the only person. A couple of people in the Lake District will recognize one of the mistakes. She also says there's a poet from the 18th century called Cooper, but actually it's spelt Cowper. So lots of people call him Cowper, but actually he's a Cooper. And I thought, I should have put it in a template document. I should have said, but I just didn't think there's such tiny, tiny details. So we can all get it wrong, but most people they won't notice and it won't matter. So how do they do the transition? So I'm thinking about reading a piece of text. So if Philip Pullman cues a Lyra speech, does he also add the she said, or is that just understood? Is it edited for this medium?
No, he does a straight read.
Oh, okay. That's fascinating. Okay, so we were talking about how Philip Pullman there's three different ways of approaching Philip Pullman on audio. One is this one, your one, which is like in the middle, the 2005 one. Then we've got sort of going on full on dramatization. You've got a BBC radio dramatization, which appears on Audible from 2021, which will be like a staged version. And it will be abridged and very different, more like listening to a radio play. Well, that's what you're doing. You're listening to a radio play.
Yeah.
But you also, going back to a more traditional format, you've got straightforward readings. And the one that is reading the Northern Lights at the moment is Ruth Wilson, who is the actress who played Mrs. Cooper, Coulter, sorry, Freudian, Mrs. Coulter in the BBC serial. So she's transferred from that to read the book. So when you've got the choice, Andrew, what do you get from each of those different, as a blind or partially sighted person, what do the three different versions of books offer you? And have you got a preference of which one you go to? That's a bit of a pose then, because I while you're thinking, I will say personally, I don't like sort of semi-dramatized adaptations. I'd be interested to see if the BBC did a better job of it, but I've seen recently there's a trend because of, I don't know if it's AI voices or something, but there is a trend now for a book that I have purchased with a traditional narrator to be sort of try to be sold to me again with people taking voices. And I thought, oh, what's this like? Is it much better? It's not abridged. It sounds like what you were describing. But I found I really hated the sort of Foley artist, low-level element of dramatization that goes on and other voices coming in. So typically it would be so-and-so, I was running to, arrest the bad guy or whatever it is. And you hear footsteps in the background. Somebody rang on the doorbell, ding dong. And I'm thinking, no, I can imagine it, get out of my head. I wanted it simplified just with the voice reading it to me because that's how it was written. And so I would prefer either the book or the stage play, the radio play, rather than the middle swathe, which is what you were listening to. But that's me. How about you?
Well, the Philip Pullman with the full cast narration, there's no sound effects.
Okay.
In the background. Yeah.
That sounds better already.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's Philip Pullman and the full cast, but there's music sort of at the beginning and the end and with each chapter, but there's no ongoing sound effects. I've not heard too many of those with sound effects in the background books you're describing, except with kids' books when I was listening to the books when I was a kid. And I didn't mind it when I was a kid. I thought that, it added some depth. But I can understand as well, yes, we have our imagination, and I can understand from your perspective how you'd feel that would be, taken away a bit. We can't use our imagination as much because the sounds are there. But I wouldn't be opposed if I heard another book like that.
Yeah. Okay, well, perhaps we should do one where we compare.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, let me know.
Yeah. I mean, so we've been talking about the Philip Pullman. Should we also consider here, I don't know if you've done any watching of the films or the TV serials with audio description. Have you tried that at all?
Oh, I watched the films years ago. I think they called it the Golden Compass. That was the only one that was released and lit, as far as I know. The only thing I remember is Ian McKellen did a brilliant job as one of the characters, the bear, Yorick Byrnison. And the TV show, well, that's why I reread his Dark Materials recently, because my sister had been watching the TV show. She really enjoyed it, and especially being a vet nurse and having dogs, pets, and just loving animals. I think she was really drawn to the the idea in the book that the people a lot of the characters have demons, they call them, which are which are souls that are part of them, Not sure if I'm explaining that very well, but yeah, no. So I think my sister really liked that aspect, and I reread the books first to remind myself of the story, and then intended to watch the TV show because I wanted to see how well they did the books justice, and but I haven't. I found there it is audio described, but I haven't got around to watching it yet.
Okay, well so that is
But
an option, which is another. We're
mm,
always keen on maximum accessibility. So we've got, let's go
mm,
down our pecking order. We've got films and TV series audio described. We've got radio plays which are staged, which I think sounds quite a good one as well, because that's obviously
mm,
done with the mind to just a oral experience. Then we've got your halfway house, where you get the value, seems to me, in that one is you've got Philip Pullman's voice and it's
mm,
not too intrusive, and then you've got the straightforward reading by an excellent actress. So I think you've got lots of good choices there. So that's
mm.
accessing Philip Pullman. What about the actual content of the books itself? Because did you enjoy when you came back to it?
No, this was a reminder. I'd read it
Okay.
as a child quite a few times
Okay.
years ago.
So coming back now, what did you think of the
Mm,
story? Did you enjoy it? Did you think
mm.
it bore up on a second reading?
Yes, there's many aspects of the story I like, and I might say some people won't agree with me, and there's probably people that will, when I say what I'm going to say, people listening will probably shout at me and go, "How dare you!" From the comfort of their homes or wherever they're listening. But yeah, as a child, I really enjoyed it, and then as I got a bit older into it, a teenager, and spoiler alert for anyone that hasn't read it, uh, there's probably going to be some spoilers. But as I became a teenager and got deeper into my Christian faith, and I was rereading the series, and there's one part where, as a child, you don't really realize some aspects. But in the third book, there's a conversation between two characters, no, three characters, and one of them is talking about the the enemy in the story is God, basically, and one of them's talking about they stopped believing in God, and it was at that point that I just didn't like the story as much. And as a kid, when you as a 10, 11 year old, I guess a lot of things go over your head. But yeah, when I was sort of 14, 15, rereading it, and in the first two books, I think it's a lot less clear that the enemy is God, and then in the third book, it's yeah that during that conversation, it suddenly all comes together, and it's oh okay. Now we're all entitled to our own opinions and views, etc. But I didn't think it was appropriate in a kid's book for the enemy to be God. Maybe it's encouraging. Well, my thoughts back then were, when I first heard it as a teenager, when realized was, maybe it's encouraging children to eh, stop being Christians or turn away from God or whatever. Maybe that isn't the point, but that's how I saw it back then. After hearing, doing some research and sort of hearing that, Philip Pullman wanted to dig up C.S. Lewis's corpse and throw stones at him, I was like, oh well, doesn't seem like a very nice chap, uh, unfortunately. So I think, well, look, okay, it's an interesting concept to have God as the enemy, and I enjoyed the recent reread. Enjoyed the characters, the settings, the overall story. Did the enemy have to be God, though? I think it would have been a lot better if the enemy wasn't God, and if they, yeah,
Okay,
and there
so
was,
can I come in there just because Philip
yeah.
Pullman lives in my city and he's a charming man. He's really lovely. I've campaigned with him for trying to set up
Oh,
school
okay.
libraries. So rest assured, I thought
Ah,
that was a
okay. Yeah.
rhetorical flourish.
Mm,
And also,
mm,
I I I think that he would probably say that he feels uncomfortable and alienated by reading fantasies that are informed by a strong faith the other way. So he doesn't, he doesn't like Narnia, for example. So
Oh yes.
each to their own. It's perfectly permissible to have a
Mm.
world in which God is the enemy.
Mm.
That's fine,
Mm.
and there is no censorship. If people want that, who are humanists or atheists or whatever,
Mm.
that is absolutely fine.
Mm.
I think we shouldn't. You can say I can imagine a version of this book which didn't alienate me, which I would have enjoyed, and that's great. I get
Mm.
it too. I would say,
Mm.
looking at it from a sort of literary critic point of view, that
Mm.
actually I think his problem is that the charm runs out. So it's really charming,
Mm.
the first book, even though it's difficult and really, really problem. The children,
Mm.
it's scary stuff. It's sort of child catcher stuff, isn't it? Like in the scary
Yeah.
stuff of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. It's got that
Mm.
element of horror in it, but it still manages
Yeah.
to be charming, largely powered by the idea of the demon, as you said.
Yeah.
The
Mm.
second one, you've got this wonderful new character who comes in, who adds his own, and he's our real world
Mm.
connection, our world connection. I think the problem
Mm.
about the third one, which is maybe why you felt really unpersuaded by it and worried by it, I think it gets
Mm.
a bit too much like I want to exercise, I want to express my annoyance with literature up to this point, which has, Milton and C.S. Lewis and everybody who's had God, and God is actually, in my view, if there is a God, he's a monster. That sort of
Yeah.
Stephen
Mm.
Fry version as well. And I think
Mm.
because that message is very foregrounded, it sits alongside a whole kind of journey into the underworld, and you end up thinking, well, what is the theology? And there's also a prophecy, which is
Mm.
fulfilled. So you think, well,
Mm.
what is the overarching universe behind this? And I was left feeling a bit. I didn't know where I was. I wasn't convinced by the fantasy. I'd lost faith in the fantasy by the time we got to
Mm.
book 3. Whereas I love book 1, really enjoyed
Mm.
book 2, and book 3 for me is didn't. I did like Mary Malone. I like that character, but I did.
Mm.
I found it almost. It was a shame he felt he had to fight that battle with God because it was the weaker part of it. He could have got
Yeah.
the message across in other ways, I felt. So I'm with you on
Mm.
that, but for a different reason, more of a sort of craft one. But I do think I
Oh
would
yeah.
absolutely underline it's absolutely fine to go and write your fantasy from a atheistic viewpoint, or a Muslim or a Hindu or a Jewish or
Mm.
whatever it is that is your thing. Perfectly fine, but just make sure you
Mm.
do it well. I suppose
Yes.
is the
Yes. I.
question.
I. I. I think I know I'm coming across very biased here. And I acknowledge that. But yeah, no, I think I hope I put across that if that's what he wanted to do, that was all right. But my view is that that's why I didn't like it.
Yeah,
And
so
that's okay.
that's a sort of we recognise that's a subjective taste element
Mm.
there. I would just like to also, while we're talking about Philip Pullman, before we move on to
Mm.
other audiobooks, just mention that, of course, he's been working on the Book of Dust series, which is his latest one, and I think there's about to be the third in the series come out pretty much
Okay.
now.
Mm.
That's read by Martin Sheen.
Mm.
Martin Sheen is an excellent actor, very good
Mm.
voice. I would say that I enjoyed listening to the first of the Belle Sauvage, the first of them, partly because it's set in my city and my city is flooded. That's fun to think about what that would mean. But
Oh.
I wasn't gripped.
Mm.
I wasn't the character. So you've got baby Lyra and
Oh.
a boy who's rescuing her, and a sort of barmaid servant character who I didn't warm to. And
Mm.
there was a deliberate attempt to make the nuns at the convent where Lyra is being raised nice, but they were also dim. So,
Oh.
so going from the sort of let's take on religion, this is a sort of here's my slightly more conciliatory, but they're also stupid. It was also a bit of an
Okay.
insult. But anyway, there you go. But that wasn't why. I just thought it was funny rather than with it. I found the river journey in it a bit too long and didn't quite hold my attention. So I need to go back and actually read the others in the series, because I need to give him another chance. So I would say that my favourite Philip Pullman books are the first one in the Northern Lights series and the Firework Maker's Daughter. So I do love his writing when it hits the spot for me, but there are some places in his writing which are misses, which may be to do with that, I don't share his faith, because it is a kind of faith he has.
Yeah.
I so that I feel a bit outside of that, but there is an audience for that, so fine. So sometimes I find technically I don't quite go with him on some of his choices. So anyway, but Martin Sheen is a good narrator, so not a bad way of accessing those books. I would recommend it. If you feel like giving it a go, Andrew, I'd recommend it.
Okay. Well, that wasn't where I was. I did see on Audible. There's also a sequel book to his Dark Materials about Lyra and Pantaleimon. I haven't read it. I'm not sure if I will. I'm not sure if I will.
It might appeal though, because it is a short story, I think, or a novella, and it is about the demon relationship, which I think is the nicest, the classiest thing in Philip Pullman.
Have you read that one?
Have I? I can't remember it if I have, so I should need to reread it. I thought I had.
But I'm glad you have met Philip Pullman and
He's
worked
lovely.
with him and
Really lovely.
were able to provide that other perspective.
The other super cool thing about Philip Pullman, I am in his fan club, even if I don't agree with he taught me a lot about how to read aloud from your own work, because I was standing behind him and he was reading a bit from the beginning of the Northern Lights at this Save the Libraries event. And I noticed that he had crossed out various filler words to make a more dramatic reading. And I thought, gosh, that's such a good idea. You don't have to read every single word that's in the published book. You just read this excerpt, you re-edit it for reading aloud. I thought, thank you, Philip. That's such a good tip. So I'm really grateful to him. And underlining that I admire him, the things that I've been sort of picking at are just being a critic. It's not anything, anything personal or anything like that. I think he's great.
And I think he, if I was ever invited to, if I was ever in an opportunity to meet him, especially having read his books, even though I have like and dislike of them, I certainly wouldn't turn the opportunity down to meet him.
And I think there is also a kind of virulent Christian out there who will attack him for putting his views in his book. So he does feel under assault. And as we see in current times, we need to disagree. I almost got that wrong. We need to disagree agreeably. So if you don't like his theology, you think, okay, I don't like your theology, but what's good about your story? And that's my attitude to anyone. I try to have anyone who I disagree with, of which there are, of course, loads of people. But with him, I don't set yourself up as someone who should tell them how they should think, because that's not your job. You just say, well, that's interesting. I feel on the outside of that worldview. I'm on the outside of, say, like Stephen Fry's worldview. But I'm interested in what you've got to say, because I learn more by listening to different views. So that's where I would go with Philip Pullman, because he's a great storyteller. So thank you very much, Andrew, for being with us to discuss the audio versions of Philip Pullman. And I look very much to talking to you next about biographies of Tolkien, Lewis and the Inklings. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Julia. I look forward to continuing to discuss with you as well.
Thanks for listening to Mythmakers podcast, brought to you by the Oxford Centre for Fantasy. Visit oxfordcenterforfantasy.org to join in the fun. Find out about our online courses, in-person stays in Oxford, plus visit our shop for great gifts. Tell a friend and subscribe wherever you find your favourite podcasts worldwide.